We are nearly done with reverse engineering Unity's demo project Rollerball. The last thing left is also a very common thing in game development, namely a user interface. As always, we create a new branch and jump over to Unity. If you played the original, you probably already know what's coming. For all the others, I will just add UI elements which we want to use, because that will make it much easier to explain what we want to do. We added a canvas and two simple text elements. One of the elements will be positioned in the top left and will be showing our score. The other element will sit right in the middle and will only be displayed when we win the game. We can briefly check if the elements are correctly positioned in the game view. Looks good. When I save this scene, we can inspect the changes in the scene file. 3 new game objects with several components. Let's follow the advice from the last section and make a prefab out of the canvas element. And another quick look at the scene diff shows us that the individual game objects are gone, but instead we get a prefab block which this time almost only contains information on the rect transforms of the UI elements. Remember, Unity's UGUI elements don't have regular transforms, but rect transforms instead, like the canvas here. Good. Again, we cleaned up our scene file a bit. Let's now connect the UI to the game, which we will simply do in the player controller. I will paste in the most important part, which is this setCountText method. In here, we update the CountUI element to the current value of the count variable. And we set the WimTextUI element only after we collected a certain number of pickups. Everything else is basically more or less housekeeping. We need the UI package, then we need to declare the variables and initialize them. Then finally in onTriggerEnter, we want to increment our counter and call the method which is updating the UI as we saw a second ago. That's it for the script. Let's check how the diff looks like. Oh, and what I can see in the diff is that my IDE autocompletion somehow smuggled in this import line for Unity's timeline, which I don't want. This was not on purpose this time, but with the diff tools, things like that are much easier to spot because I can see the changed and new lines highlighted. Let's quickly get rid of that line and then check in. This time before we merge, let's think of the following scenario. We have a deadline to deliver the project, so we skip testing it and just create the merge and hope for the best. Then it's time to show the project to our manager or customer. We press the play button, and of course we have errors and the UI elements don't really look like everything is okay. So that is very bad. Our customer tells us that he will get a coffee and we have 10 minutes to solve the issue, or he is gone. In this situation, we can apply something which is sometimes called a hotfix. We don't have the time to think about branches and tasks and whatnot, so we just stay on main and fix the issue directly on there. So let's have a look. The error tells us that we have a null reference exception, so when we check the player, indeed the UI elements are not set. Let's this time test the behavior. Then there seems to be another issue, which is that the win text does not appear. When we check the script, we can see a typical mistake with hard-coded values. I just copy and pasted the code from the original, which had more pickups. Let's at least create a variable for the number of pickups. And if we count them, I get 8. Now our customer comes back and we have one final chance. This was close, but we saved the project in the last second with the hotfix. Obviously, the hotfix is really interesting when the game is hosted somewhere and the changes from the main branch are actually used in a live version. The lesson here, however, is merging from task branches should be a precise ritual, which applies techniques that make sure that the code you merge is actually running and hopefully without errors. Code reviews and automated testing are other techniques which we will touch later in the course. If something bad happens, however, a hotfix is sort of a last resort. And by the way, we just finished the Rollerball project. So congratulations! In the next video, we will quickly see how we could now make use of our clean version control setup and wrap up the project.